Thank y'all for joining us today. Look forward to doing this Airbase 101 basic training with y'all. So first off, our agenda with our Airbase 101, we'll be covering our basic overview, of 40,000 foot overview of this and walking through a couple of slides on this. Then we'll go into a Q&A and any questions that y'all would like to have answered or any details in that, we'll go into that. So inside of Airbase, what we're going to be covering is, of course, going to be all of our flights and missions, planning, members and teams, trainings, hardware, maintenance, safety, reporting, resources, and admin. Now, first off, I'm going to start with our flights and missions section here. This will cover all of your flight data with generated flight cards, the ability to see and track your own flight data. As an org admin, you can see your flights and others. You'll be able to have the availability to sort and filter your flights. You can also view your flight data on the mission view, and Airbase has the ability to export all your flight data into a CSV very easily. Now, one thing in FlightBase that does make it great is the availability to have all your flights visible in here by your members, your mission, or your teams, be able to actually see all of your flight cards based off of each one of the. That did not go the way it was supposed to. Go through your actual flight data and sort that by date very easily in our system. Next up will be our planning section here. Now, this one is going to be where you can submit a NOTAMs through our system on our web.dronesense.com. Now, this section does require DroneSense to be authorized as a vendor by the flight services account, so you do have to set up authorization on your flight services page to make sure that we are allowed to submit these NOTAMs. And then it is subject to flight services reporting and everything on that. Now, this in there on our system, when we are setting this up, we do have the availability to set your NOTAM either via the address, GPS, or you can drag and drop it. Now, our next slide on this one will be our members here. This is going to be where you keep all of your pilots or your members' profiles on here. Every member will have their own unique profile. This will give them their username, password, and PIN. This is where they can come in and actually edit that and change all that information on there. They will also be able to set your administrator can set all the details for your teams and member organizations in here. And users can only be added by invitation from your organization's administrator. One thing that is nice about this is this automatically tracks all of your flight hours can be brought in. You can edit all your information on your flight card or upon your members card there for your previous flights, flight times or flight counts or flight hours. Sorry. See all your flights associated with that member all in one location, easily accessible in our system. Now, in our teams view here, in that same area, this is where the feature will allow you to organize your team members into different groups for tracking and managing the data within DroneSense platform. For example, you could use our teams to sort your pilots and visual observers into distinct units where each unit may be responsible for different geographic regions. Task types, search and rescue, accident reconstruction, all those different availabilities there for those different teams. Equipment type, and simply to match others from your organization's reporting function. It's a good way to delineate all of your data for your different teams inside of our organization here. Now I'll go into our training section here. The great part about our training section is this ties back to your members card on every one of your pilots or members in our system. So you can use this for training modules to track a wide range of training certifications, license, even custom currency tracking for your members in our organization. Each entry of the training page is considered its own template, and you could create a new template for each type of training certifications that you want to track for your organization, like your Part 107, night pilot ratings, skill ratings, hardware certifications. You can do that inside of our trainings here. The limit on that is just up to how y'all want to put it in there to track it and assign that to all of your members. That way it's available in there. And it does give you an assign upon date for every one of those where that can give you your countdown when that expires or when they need to retest for that event. Once you've created a template inside of our system to all the members who you want it to track and the assignment date and expiration there you can track members' currency to manage your programs. That way they can stay up to date. You can make sure that they maintain all of those concurrencies on their certifications or events that you want to track. Now, our hardware section. This is where our page automatically tracks all of your hardware and associates it with your organization. You can narrow the results by your drones, your batteries, your equipment, and your devices, or sensors, or use the advanced filters so you can arrange the results by several different types of sorts. So equipment grouped together for different ones with pilots and all that. Now our new non-drone related hardware can be added in our custom hardware field, and you can track that in our system. So it's not an automatically tracked one, but all your drones, your equipments, your batteries that are currently working and flying inside of our environment are automatically tracked. So you don't have to hunt down those serial numbers. You don't have to look for it. You don't have to dig out all that. It is brought in automatically once you have flown that aircraft with an internet connection, and it uploads that actual data on landing. Now, our next one here will be our maintenance section. We can go into a lot of detail on this. This is actually why we offer a basic training just in maintenance on these, because you can accomplish a lot of detail and information on this. Your maintenance page contains a list of all your maintenance procedures your organization has created. You do have to create all of those procedures in your system, as well as a history of all that maintenance that has been performed on all of your assets. Now, you're able to set the procedures for this and build that out in your system. And then you're able to go into the procedures. So you are able to build out all the procedures in here and set that. Then you can set the schedule of the who, what, where, why, when, and how often that person's going to carry out that procedure for either that drone, that battery, that sensor, or that equipment in here. And you choose which procedure they're going to carry out for each one of those. They will get an email up on that. It does show up on, if you have it up on like a drone, it will show up on the actual little bell icon that there is a maintenance required for that aircraft. Great information to make sure you stay on top of all your maintenances that are probably part of your SOP or SOG. Next up on this is going to be your safety tab here. Now, this is where when you have an incident and you associate that on here, it's going to track all that activity for that flight assessment, or so you can track all that. Then we also have the availability in our safety to set a flight assessment, and we have customizable pre-flight checklist in here. Now, what's great is when you have an incident, we record all of your organization's information on that. For that, we have a full factor card on that for all of the factors of an incident, walks you through and generates that incident card. And if you do it off of the flight card itself, you will automatically bring in the pilot, the flight you were on, GPS location, all that equipment on there, all associated with that incident in one easy form that can be exported as a PDF, or you can pull it out later in reporting too. Now, of course, we do have the availability in here to set up flight risk assessment, and we have pre-flight checklists that can be enforced upon your controllers. So if there's a little red shield that you can check on and walk through every one of those points on that pre-flight checklist. And as you walk through, they turn green and check it off. And that's coming through up on there so you can complete that, and then it registers that back on the flight card in your system. Now, we don't stop you from flying by not completing that. We just document it on our systems there, to make sure that you're actually following through on there, because we understand sometimes you may do it and forget to actually check that off because you're rushing. Now, our next tab here will be our reporting. This will allow you to pull multiple different reports. You can pull CSVs and PDFs in here. Currently, you can pull a CSV from our reporting system for your COAs. So you can select the different COAs that are operationally being used, the date ranges that those are at, and pull those as separate reports. Then you can also pull a PDF report for incident reports, Texas logs, or your summary report in our system. Brings those right out as a PDF, very easily gone through, and gives you a nice, visibly pleasing report that's easy to read. That's all based off of date ranges in there. And I noticed it just skipped the resources tab. Next tab up on here is our resources section, where all those reports that you pulled will actually show up in here. I'm sorry, I forgot the actual slide in here. where that resources tab is. So any of those reports you pull, it will give you a truthing mechanism in there to show the date that those were pulled in. And you can go into those and actually download those reports directly off of that. You can also upload any type of data in there, such as your PDFs, Excel files, any of that manual data that you'd like to have in there for ease of access in your resources on our system. Now, last but not least is going to be our admin tab here. This is where you come to for your members page to invite all of your members, active, inactive, and pending membership invites, all that right there up on your first tab. The second tab is where you can build out all of your teams to separate out that data inside of your organization and give rights to different types of data sets in our system. Next up will be our roles section in here. And this is where we're going to have real granular control of it, where you have your default roles that are built out in our system. And then you have custom roles that you can build out to view, edit, or manage, create or manage any section of our actual software that we offer you in our system. Then, of course, we have our devices, which shows all of our active devices that you are using your current DroneSense on and actively using. They can be disabled directly from there too. Then notifications is for all of your automatic roll-up notifications. This is going to be for all of your reports for things like maintenance, UAS operations, Texas logs, idle batteries. I just drew a blank on one of them on there. And a few others on there that'll automatically send you a report directly to you or to the emails that you identify for it to go to. Then, of course, our settings is for your org's basic information, your password and your measurements, your MFA if you use a multi-factor authenticator, our magic video link to be enabled or disabled, API keys for like Flock and Fusus, and then your UAS operations for all of the COAs that you want to set and hold in our system. Then subscriptions, of course, is where your class 1 and 2 drones are going to be showing how many of those that you have. Your MSAT, so your video data for all your mobile streaming and tracking, and your advanced geospatial there too. It's for all of your base subscriptions with us. Any questions or anything like that currently?
Hey Cole, can you share DS East in the flights and
Yep.
missions page?
Give me 1 second here.
One of the things about the flights and missions is this gives you the ability to be very granular with looking at different flights, being able to go back and pull up specific information. We can show whether the flight was a training flight or a remote flight, if it was offline, and then go into the flight data cards. So if you can go ahead and just unclick your My Flights.
Yep.
So that's something to pay attention to also when you're looking at them. It'll usually for me it'll pull up My Flights, but you can see on here we've got like the 5-digit alphanumeric characters on here where it gives you the flight identifiers. Uh, and so, for example, we have the one which is F0BX5. That was a remote flight on the Matrice 300 RTK on a training mission, things like that. So we can go into and pull that information up. So let's go ahead and pull that one up. Well, we get a lot of granular data. We can show that it was a remote associated with a call for service. Uh, we can see that, we can click view and replay. We can see whether or not pre-flight checklist was done. It was automatically generated. We can see what hardware was involved with it, as well as any batteries, controller, who the pilot was. We scroll down, we can see if there's a COA associated, and we can also associate a COA on the back end as well, uh, which mission it was on and the location. Can you go ahead and click on view and replay? All right. So in view and replay, we get a 3D simulated view of the aircraft and the mission. And there's a clock icon in the bottom left-hand corner of the video screen. That's where we can stop, pause, fast forward, or reverse the video. Can you scroll out just a little bit, Cole? So what we're getting is that kind of overview of the flight with the simulated field of view there. What also it shows up is that sensor point of interest. Now we're seeing exactly where the drone was looking show up on the screen. So if we need to figure out, we had a complaint and Officer Jones was looking in my window, something like that, we can come back and pull the video view and replay up and look exactly where the sensor point of interest was looking at and determine, do we have an issue there or not. Um, so right now, looks like we're tracking some traffic issues and just looking right on the screen. This we can also see on here the telemetry across the bottom of the screen. You have the left stick, right stick, gimbal angles, views, pilot distance, home point, the attitude and heading indicator, our speed indicators, vertical and horizontal, as well as our altitudes in AGL or height above terrain. And then we can click it back and forth to get our mean sea level altitude as well. So we've got our replay functions on the bottom left. And then once we're done with that, we can click the X to leave this screen as well. Does anybody have any questions on the flight card at all? And then across the top of the flight card, again, we have options to archive, mark as training, or export that as a PDF. You also can export the flight path in, I believe it's a KML format, GPX, or JSON. Okay. Let's say X. And you want to go over to missions, and we'll go over what we can do with the mission. Okay. So at missions, we can pull up a lot of data as well. So we can see what dates and start times of the missions. We can see if it's a training mission or not, what pilots have been involved with it, any hardware attached to that mission, assessments, and the flights. One of the things that I like the most about missions is we can come down and export each mission to a CSV file. So as a program manager, my chief would want to know how many missions we do in support of mutual aid. Well, I can come down and export that in a report, and it kind of give me that granular data that I need to have to make my boss happy on that. So there's a lot of that can go on with the missions as well. Missions can be archived, they can be marked as training, or they can be exported. If you do archive your mission, you just go back to your missions tab real quick. You see that where that slider is just below the word flights in missions. If you click on that slider to the left next to the dashboard, we can search anything that's in right there. Yep. Then we can come in and turn on archived and show archived missions. So we just hit apply and we'd be able to turn that on. And then so anything that you do can be pulled back up. One thing to remember about Airbase is the only part of DroneSense that where you can actually delete anything is in OpSub when it comes to the map layers that you do that. Everything else at Airbase can only be archived. So you're not going to lose data. If you archive it, you'll be able to pull right back up. And Cole, do you want to go through Texas logs with them?
Sure. Now, one of the great things about Texas logs here is we do have the availability to set this up and actually come in and create a Texas log. On this, we can come in and set up a log name, associate your teams, your start and end date for that, and then we can actually come in and associate a drone on here. So if I want to come down to, let's go my M3E, I can set my location here as Eastland. Then I can come down and add all of my actual information on this. If it was a COA, Part 107, what county it was in, the vicinity of pilot, I can select if there was any other pilots there. So I have a remote pilot, then my pilot there that was in command, any VOs, ad hoc VOs. You can see any of your lost links, duration of that lost link, flight details, if it was daytime or nighttime, takeoff or landing damages, any malfunctions with your equipment, then all your calls for service information here. So if you have any arrests, victims, if you have any seizures there for assets, you can put all this in here. The nice part about this is when I come down here, if we did arrest any criminals, if you have any assist on it, what mission you were operating under. So like if I come in here and I go to, let's go to the training op. I can then select this. We can also come down and give a synopsis of what all happened in this for all these missions. And then we can actually save and enter in the flights here.
And so once we select the date range, say on there, we can say today's date, between 9 a.m. and noon. Then you could pull in any flights that took place during that time frame, and then you can make sure you have precisely what you're looking for. So, as an example, and then you can create the synopsis and then submit it. Okay.
And it gives you a nice little synopsis here on that. So we can see all that details in our card here.
Now we call them Texas logs because I believe it's a Texas requirement for agencies over a certain size that have to be able to have that reporting. But I found there's several agencies that really like the ability to get that granular in the data to be able to pull that up and do after action reports. Let's see.
The big parts of it is using that as an after action report. Now, our next one here in our planning section, you can come in here in your add to NOTAMs. Let's see here. I don't know why it keeps kicking me back to that. We need to put a flight services on this account. And it will allow you to actually come in and set a NOTAM in here so that your flight services account can be associated with it. Now, in your members and teams here, this is where we do have the availability to get into the either a list view or icon view here, depending upon how you want to see it. If you've got a lot of pilots or a lot of members in here, I prefer to look at the list view because then I can see what their rank is. If they're put in here upon a rank, their name, it's all alphabetically listed on here. Email, radio numbers, 107s. Check the last flight and flight hours. Or you can come in and actually filter this and see if you need to check it by last flights. So if I go in for today, apply. Don't have any flights showing up today. Everybody's experiencing some bad weather. Let's go in here. There we go. Now we have all the flights showing up here in those last couple of days filtered out very quickly in here for your members and teams. We can filter a lot of data in this. We can also bring this out and export it as a CSV if we need to. We'll go ahead and kill this real quick, and we can see everybody on this in a nice list view or a icon view if you want to see everyone's headshots. Now, inside of here, we can come in and actually track any of our trainings on our pilots here can be displayed. We can show who they report to, phone numbers, email addresses, last login, last flight, total flight hours, org flight hours, total flights. And you can put in those initial flight hours and flight counts, their radio number, whether or not they have email or text notifications. Now, this is one, if you're set up on the automatic notifications inside of our Ops Hub to receive those, and you're a member inside your unit here, and you're not getting those, this is one of the things I always recommend people go to check to make sure that they are sent those notifications, that these are enabled. So if you are set up on that notification system, make sure that you are set to receive those here, because if these are disabled, it will not send it to you.
And one thing about the phone number you add to the account, make sure that's the department, your cell phone number you want to be notified from. DroneSense is not going to sell your information to anybody, so you're not going to get any calls about your car's extended warranty because of that. That's for your agency's internal use only. So we're not pulling that data out and trying to use it for anything. But that's just so you guys and gals are getting the notifications based off the missions that you need. So sometimes we find that agencies will put in or officers will put in dispatches number, and they're not not getting the notifications.
Yes. The other one up on here is you can come down and actually set your preferences for your languages, your unit of measurement for you. Your device PIN can be changed, and everyone with the members access can come in here and you can update your device's PIN, change your password here, and then you can see all your associated flights with this. As an org admin, you can come in and see it, other people's flights on here. So if we have any org admins in here, I can come in and go here. Let's go to members and teams. I'm going to go to Gabe here, and we can see all his flights, teams and roles on here too. And that's where, as an org admin, you can come in and add teams and roles directly to a member in here too. As you can see their evaluation trainings on this too. Now, our next one I kind of want to cover and go over is our training section here. We do have the availability to track pretty much any trainings that you want to put in here to track and assign to a member. It's as simply as going in and adding new training, put in your template type. So the most common, of course, is keeping up with all your 107s. Set that as a certificate, granting authority as the FAA. You can put a start and end date up on here if you'd like to have that. So if you did school and y'all currently go to that, but it is an expiring training. So you would set that one for your Part 107 as a 2-year expiration, give it any notes and create that training. Once those have been created, and as you can see here, we have quite a few trainings that have been tracked in here, simulated and tested. You can come in and actually go into that. We can add documentations for that training like your 107 here, adding video links or location data. And then you can also come in and put a moniker in for that identifier for that type of training. And then come down here and go to our assignment area to assign that training to everyone here. That way you can have that assigned upon date for when they receive that training, and then you get that expiration date so you'll know when that's going to expire for the user.
That's what I was looking for.
Gotcha.
There you go.
Yeah, I was trying to type that I didn't have the option to undo. Real quick, I was just curious if in the training, you know how you were just showing you could set up training.
Yep.
Is there at one time they were looking at having kind of an ad hoc kind of free form kind of training where you could, like let's say something that's not recurring like your 107 or something like that. You just had, hey, we trained today for 2 hours doing this, and just kind of put that in there instead of trying to have, okay, you got your 107 training, you got, if you're NIST course or something like that, instead of having an actual like training like this, the template and all that, if there's just kind of like a free form kind of, hey, this day, this time we trained for this length of time, and then in like some notes or description, this is what we did.
So for my agency, what we do is like when we had to convert aircraft, because we were DJI, because I run a unit in Florida. And so we did a familiarization training for everybody. So what I did is I used this form. I gave it a training name, team, training type, and granting authority, which would have been my agency. And I just gave it a start date and end date, which could be the same day. And I just put in the notes what the training was for. So you can do that using the start date and end date. It can be the same day, or it could be like a 40-hour course, whatever you want to do. And that's where that comes in. If the training is going to expire like NIST or the FAA recurrent cert, then we would click training expires. But if it's like a one-off training like you're talking about, we would just give it a start date and end date and call it good on that.
Okay, and
Answer the question,
you can just once you do that, if it's just like that one day, is it going to? Are you going to archive it? Or does it go away, or is it just sit there and it's not expiring?
It won't expire. It'll be in your system, so we can archive it later. But
Okay.
I want that to persist. So I want to be able to see that, one of my guys is a guy named Keith. That Keith went through a training. We did a night operations training a year and a half ago. I want to go back to Keith's profile and be able to pull up. Yep, he went night operations training a year and a half ago,
Okay.
and be able to find that training record.
So when you do that single day thing you're just talking about, you can still go in and assign, okay,
Yep.
These are the only people that went to it kind of thing.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I appreciate that.
No problem.
Stephen, I see you got a question here on the, can we add each member's actual certificate to the training? So you can set their certificate on the actual, like, let's go into the training here. I would recommend setting that certificate upon each member of the training, which you would do inside of like your 107 here. Instead of having that certificate number added as documentation for each member, set their assigned upon date as the date that they receive their 107 certificate, and make sure in their members here that you would come in and set their part 107 number there for their certificate and add that into their documentation here. I need to add mine for that 107. They all got that PDF and they can set it member there on it. Now, if inside a training here, when they come, time is up for them in their 107, when they expire, it will be notified here. Like I've got mine set, I've got a year and a month and 4 days left. And then when I go to renew, I can renew it and set that assigned upon date to the date that I renewed on. Does that help or answer, Stephen?
Cole, if you pull up my profile real quick.
Yeah.
I can show, I have my stuff attached to it.
Members. Let's go here.
Yeah. Where is my profile? You have it filtered? Yeah, take the filter off.
Filter. Yeah. I just looked at that. I was like, is there a filter on here? Yes, there's a filter on here.
Cancel. And then hit the X of the filter.
It's not that. Oh, there it is.
There
Sorry. Filter. We go to mic.
Keep going.
I know.
I'm all the way in the back. There we go. And then you can see, I have a couple of things here. I have my air. I also keep a copy of my Part 107 airspace authorizations that I have for local, and my FA recurrent document with me as well. So that way I have it.
See, we can see his radio number, his Part 107 here. We have his certification for his 107, and then his NIST expiration here on there.
Yeah.
All his documentation for those 107s are right here. All right, so our next section here will be our hardware issue, or the hardware area. Sorry about that. Misspoke. This is where it's going to automatically bring in your hardware. So as long as that software, the DroneSense software, is installed upon that device, and you have actively flown in our software with that drone, and it is one being used, it will automatically bring it in. Now, what's great about this is it doesn't just bring in the drone information, it also brings in the battery, the smart equipment, and the sensors. Like on this Matrice 300 RTK here, you can see your location, your flights, last flight, and flight hours. We can go into the detailed view of this, showing all your manufacturer, your model, your flights, flight hours, last flight, serial numbers. You can actually come in here and turn on if you've done your QEP. You can set a custom ID, your purchase dates. You can set your purchase price in here. Firmware FAA registration IDs can be put in here too, so you can keep up that tail number for your aircraft. Controller serial numbers, last maintenance frame type, initial flights and flight hours can be put in, and then any notes on that aircraft that you'd like to add in here. Plus, you can see if that's been involved in any incidents and what teams it's associated with too. All your maintenances, overdue maintenance, and upcoming maintenance, plus every flight that aircraft has been associated with, exportable to CSV. You can also archive directly from here for that device. Go ahead and hit cancel. And we have the availability to come in here and see not just the drones, but the batteries the same way. And we can go into the detailed view of those batteries, showing how many flights and flight hours, what firmware is on it, serial number, last time it was used. You can put in that initial flights and flight counts on here, see any of the maintenances that are overdue, current, or upcoming, and all flights associated with that battery, along with if it's been involved in any incidents or what teams it's associated with.
And
Now,
can you go ahead and show sensors as well for those?
yeah, we can see the smart remotes. And we can see even the sensors on this, like for that M300 here. Got the H20Ts, H20, XT2, Z30, H20T on here. Then, of course, now in our hardware section here, we do have the availability to add custom hardware. This isn't stuff that we can automatically track, but you can put in here and track and have in our system. Now, this gives you the availability to come in and set, like Joe's got his Vision Pro in here. We've got a broadcast module for here for remote ID. We've got a Brink lemur being tracked, fleet vehicles. Now, what's nice about this is we can come in and you can add those unsupported aircraft. You can add those unsupported devices, hotspots, Starlinks, anything that you want to add to your system in here and add those and actually have that data associated with it. If you do go in to add anything in the add new custom equipment tab here, this is where you'll put in all that information for that to track in here, any notes or specifications you'd like to have, and then create that. Once it's been created, that's where you can then come in and associate a photo with it so you know which a good identifying moniker for it. And you can see that, of course, in your typical view there of the icon, or you can go to a list view for it. And just like everything else in our reporting side here, you can filter it, go through by name, manufacturer, model, all of that good data right here. Now, our next one on here will be our maintenance section. Now, we do delve into a full basic training on maintenance in our system. This is just a high overview of this. You have the availability in here to see any of those completed maintenances. Any of your overdue show up as red. I mean, we've got ones from 664 days ago. Any of your upcoming ones show up in here. Those do display as green on your calendar here and red if it's overdue, green for upcoming, black for the completed ones. Now, what's great about this is we have the availability to see this as a today marker. So any of them that are due today, the month, or the week, if you just want to see a weekly view of it too. Then we add the availability in here to build out those procedures so it can follow your SOPs or SOGs in here. Very simply walk through each step, how long you think it's going to take, and put that through. Now, one thing that's great about this is once those procedures have been built out, you can then come into the schedules here and then set that who, what, where, why, when, and how often this is going to be accomplished. So you can come in and say, hey, Andy's going to actually do this. We can set up a template type. We can select what teams he's part of, and we can set if it's flight hours, battery cycles, flight count, or calendar, and then how often. I normally do 10, and if it's the flight hours there, when that starts, and then which procedure we're going to be talking about up on the hardware, either the drone, the battery, the sensor, or the equipment. So let's go with drone real quick. And then we check out one of those procedures that we created for that. And then Andy will be notified when this comes up due. This will also, any of these procedures and schedules that you set up will also be displayed on the remote itself on your aircraft, on that little bell sign. If it is a maintenance that is due, it does pop up and say there is a maintenance currently due upon this aircraft. You can click up on that. It'll take you into our settings on the remote. And then you can actually go up on that and it'll take you to the website to complete said maintenance. Now, in our safety tab here, this is where we can really come in and see any of these incidents that have occurred. Your first one is all your incident cards that have been generated. I always recommend if you're going to generate an incident card, typically if you have the recoverable incident and that flight log loaded, you want to come into that flight. I'm going to use mine here. We can then come in and go to the incidents here, create new, and you'll walk through all the factors of an incident here to give you a baseline information for that incident to create that card. Once that has been completed, it takes you into our actual safety tab here, and it generates that card. One of the ones I like to show here is a tree strike that occurred. Shows the date and time, report type, cause of the actual incident, and who was part of it. But because we did this off the flight, it shows that flight number in here, that mission, the crew, all the hardware, and it brings all this in because it was submitted off that flight in one section. So all you have to worry about is the actual incident card, not having to come back in here and add everything in. And that will, of course, associate it to that hardware. Go ahead, Mike.
And also, if you scroll up, it'll let you document if there's any mandatory reporting that you had to do that it was accomplished, because if everything, if it's not in writing, it didn't happen. So we can go ahead and check off that if we had to contact the NTSB or the FAA, we can go ahead and mark that reporting has been completed, and that gives us that CYA factor that we're that all that documentation has been done.
Then, of course, talking about that, we do have the availability to build out our own pre-flight checklist here. We have a default one that is automatically loaded into all of your accounts here, showing your basic checklist. Now, this is a very basic checklist here. You can add to or take away from it in any form that you'd like to, or you can make a completely custom one and activate that and make it part of the actual pre-flight on your system. Add every line that you'd like to have on that. So next up will be our reporting here. Now, this is for pulling those quick and easy reports. So if you need to pull a COA report, you simply select the COA that you want to pull the report from, the date range that you need to pull that, which we all know is normally the first to the last of the month. Pull that report, have that CSV, put it into a deliverable, send it off to the FAA so they can put it in a closet and hopefully never have to look at it again. Next one is our incident reports, Texas logs, and our summary reports. Now, all of these are the same thing. They pull within a date range that you set this at, and then you download that report. These all pull as a PDF into our system right now. And one thing that's great about this is any report that you pull shows up in our resources tab here. Now, this is that slide that I forgot to put in there. My bad upon that one. Sorry about that. But it will show every one of the reports that you have pulled. Gives the date range that you pulled that report. And I can even come down here. Let's go one tab over and we'll go into one from 2022. And let's go with this one. We can actually come in here and I can still pull that report. So it's a nice truthing mechanism there when you pulled that report and have that data set that is still able to be pulled from your list there. Now, what's great about this too is in our resources tab, not only can we pull those reports that you have generated in our system, but you do have the availability in here, come on, to add any documentation. Now, this is for things like PDFs, Excel files, DAT sheets, any of that is data that you'd like to put in here for ease of access for your org admin to have access to. Not something that you want to put photos or video files or something like that. It's not meant to handle that load of file type in here.
One of the things I put in there for my agency is the user manual for when we switch to new aircraft. I put that in there. A copy of our COA. I put that in there. That way everybody had it. For like the M30 maintenance plan. That way everybody's got a copy of the documents. Things like that you want to be persistent.
Now our last one here will be our admin side. This is where you're going to come to invite all your members. Set this up by simply going to the invite member, first name, last name, email address, and it sends out that invitation. They become a pending member. Great part about this is if it gets buried in the spam filter or lost in your email box, whatever the case may be, you can resend that if need be, or you can revoke it just in case you typed in an incorrect email address, or we're giving an incorrect email address so you don't give someone access to your account that you don't want to have access. Now, again, up on our system, once they actually accept that invitation, they'll become an active member in here and you'll get all the details and information of that person. You do have the availability to disable that individual here off of your admin tab. They will drop down into an inactive member here and it shows all their stuff. Now, this does kind of archive your user there so that you can enable them again and bring them back into an active state if need be. Going over to teams, this is where you come in and create all of your teams. Everybody has factory 1 team in there already. So if you need to separate out that data and build out a team in our system, you can come in here and actually create a team, name it, phone number for the primary contact, who's going to be the point of contact for it, add all your members to it. And if you have any of them that you want to add to that, you can add new members on here too and invite them in. Now, what's great about this is inside the teams roles, you can have pilots in multiple teams across your system. It's just a good way to separate your data for the type of mission that they can fly in and the data sets of maps and sorting of those pilots inside of your unit. Now, in our roles section here, this is where we come to actually build out all your roles of your permissions for each of your members in the organization. We do have default roles loaded up in the system, such as member and ops viewer. We recommend that for all pilots. And then we have data owner, supervisor, team admin, and org admin inside of our actual system here. Now, we do give you the availability to build out custom user roles. So you can come in and view, edit, create, or manage every step of our software. Now, what's great about this is we have the availability to set up just a view access if you want and assign that to one person or to multiple people inside there. Once you create a role, that role can be assigned for multiple uses across your board. Now, this gives you the availability to set, like I said, just that view, or you can open everything up. And as you saw back here, we had a God mode that someone put in here that had everything turned on and active so that they can access, create, manage, edit, delete, or archive anything in there. And then, of course, if you go to a list view, you can see what teams and member accounts on every one of those that you have. Now, next up is our devices tab. This is for tracking any of those active devices that are using our software. So be it phone, smart remote, any of those devices that you have downloaded our software on, it will show up here and show the make and model of it if it's a retrievable asset for us to see, like DJI, Samsung, Apple. You can see if it's an iPad, a smart remote, which version of iPad you have, what version of phone processors in there. And you can deactivate a device here too. Now, if you ever get that message saying that your device has been deactivated, the easiest thing to do, and this is a one that up on there, you'll learn it every 6 months, it's going to ask you for this. Delete your user profile on your device, re-log in with full credentials, username, password, and PIN. That'll reactivate that device. That is just a security protocol that is set up in there. So every 6 months of use, you're going to have to reset that so it re-invites that system into our operation. Now, on our next one is our notifications for our automatic rollouts. You can set this on weekly or daily. You can select what day of the week if you choose weekly. If we go to daily, it's every day you're going to get the report. You set who's going to get these reports on here. Put in their email address. If it's going to include the supervisor or not, email notifications are on and roll up on this. So if you come in upon your Texas logs here, you can set this on roll up and notifications to David and Charles for any of these coming in. And they will receive a notification once a week. I believe we have ours set up on Mondays every week, and you get that roll up notification. Same thing for your UAS operations. That's all your COAs, trainings, maintenance logs. So all your maintenances can be sent out to the people you've identified it to go to. Incidents, idle batteries, duty logs, teams and roles, all of that right here. You set the email of who needs to be sent out this information to. Then, of course, our settings. Now, this is going to be all for your org's basic settings. It's going to show all of your organization's information here, unit of measurement being used by y'all, password requirements. If you use an MFA, magic video links, you want to have that enabled if you want to be able to send off that link on the automatic notifications, that QR code off your system or anything like that, so that you can share that very easily for that video stream. Esri layer access tokens for things like if you need to use an access token for credentialed information that are hosted by Esri. And then API keys for things like Flock and Fusus. If y'all are working with them, we can turn on an API key to have our information sent out to those integrations. Then, of course, down here at the very bottom, we have our UAS operations for your COAs. Now, this is where you're going to come put in your flight services username that is associated with that COA, the number associated with it, the default altitude and default radius, and that COA ID so that you can save that. As soon as you put that in, hit save, it'll create a new one. Each one of these is one in here for a test, and it allows you to build those out. Now, one thing I did want to share up on here to make sure that y'all get credit on this, give me 1 second here. Please take a moment. We do have the QR code here. Scan that QR code with your device, fill out that little survey so you can get a certificate for this to make sure that you are getting credit for this basic training. Well, thank y'all very much for your time. We appreciate y'all coming for this basic training. Hope to see y'all up on the next one. See you again in about 2 weeks.